This is Bergstrom State Line Quiz Bowl. Now from the Collins Aerospace Studio at the Nordloff Center in downtown Rockford, here's your host, Eric Wilson.
We are so glad you've decided to join us for another edition of Bergstrom State Line Quiz Bowl, our first Bergstrom State Line Quiz Bowl in December. Man, this season is just rolling along. Last weekend, of course, Thanksgiving weekend, Galena had something to be thankful for. They won, they're moving on, and they will play one of these two teams, whoever wins between the Boylan Titans and the Keith Country Day Cougars. First, let's say hello to Boylan. The Titans have been playing in our Quiz Bowl since day one. Last season, they lost to eventual runners-up Auburn. That was in our second round. Their best showing, though, they've gone pretty far in our tournament. They fell 70 points shy of winning the whole thing in Season 3. Of course, Luke, you and nobody on the team was back then, but I'm sure you've heard the stories and the legends of that Season 3 Boylan team, so you can avenge their loss. Luke is the captain. Introduce us to your starting lineup, Luke.
I'm Luke, captain of the Boylan team, coached by Miss Pfluger. To my left is Rafa, to my right is Ian, and to my far right is Helena.
And it's always good luck to throw a shout out to the coach at the beginning. Who knows?
Yeah.
We'll see if that pays off. Let's also now give a round of applause to the Keith Country Day Cougars. Keith's been here in all but one of our 10 seasons. They lost to eventual champs Winnebago last year in the Elite Eight, but just like Boylan, the Cougars actually fell 70 points shy of taking home the entire championship, and that was in Season 4. Again, Hadley, you and the team weren't around then, but I'm sure you've heard those stories too. We've become so close. Maybe this will be your year. You are leading the team. Tell us who you brought with you.
I'm Hadley, captain of the Keith Country Day School Quiz Bowl team, and we are coached by the wonderful Mrs. Burns, and my teammates will introduce themselves from my left to my right.
I'm Colby.
Tia. Mitch.
And all the buzzers worked fantastically. Did you see Colby's look on his face when he had to introduce himself? The questions do get a little bit harder than that as we go, Colby. I just want to warn you. All right, and again, another first-time matchup in our Season 10. Shall we begin? Hands on your buzzers, contestants. Our buzz-in round rules are very simple, 10 points a question. The two most important rules: wait for me to call your name before you answer, and then say that answer loudly and clearly. Good luck, teams. Here we go. What NFL team, which was led by quarterback Bart Starr and coach Mitch?
Green Bay Packers.
That's right. You didn't even need half the question. Nice work, and you are first on the board, Keith. What disasters have a maximum value of 5, meaning incredible damage, on the enhanced Fujita scale? Ian.
Tornadoes.
That's right, based on the wind speed in their funnels. Question for question so far. What musician who created the album Sketches of Spain and developed Cool... Raphael.
Miles Davis.
That's right. Birth of the Cool, Sextet on trumpet on Kinda Blue. That was the rest of that question. You didn't need it. Let's move on. What American chemist defined acids as substances capable of donating an electron pair? Raphael.
Arrhenius.
Incorrect. I'll finish for Keith. And is the namesake of diagrams that depict electrons as dots? Hadley.
Lewis.
That's right. Those are Lewis dot structures. He is Gilbert Lewis. The outdoor sculptures Endless Column and The Table of Silence are by what Romanian sculptor of the series Bird in Space? Luke.
Brancusi.
That's correct. Maybe one of the toughest art questions we've had, but you handled that like a champ. Up by 10. Here's a new one. What Egyptian god who replaced Montu as the patron deity of Thebes was identified with Jupiter and Zeus and was famously fused with the sun god Ra? Colby.
Amun.
That is right. Amun-Ra is that fusion. Back to a tie game. The Tour de France traditionally ends along what street in Paris, whose western end is at the Arc de Triomphe? Luke.
Champs-Élysées.
That is correct. You put Boylan ahead by 10. What emperor ruled as his country conquered Burma and the Philippines, established Manchukuo, and lost Colby?
Hirohito.
Yes, and lost to the Allies in the Pacific in World War II. What state has a uniquely pennant-shaped flag featuring 5 red and white stripes and Colby?
Ohio.
Yes, and 17 white stars because it was the 17th state admitted to the Union. Keith's on top now. What English poet included a poison tree in his collection Songs of Experience and described the fearful symmetry? Helena.
William Blake.
Yes, of a jungle predator in The Tiger. Back to tied. What country, which contains most of the Apennine Mountains, is home to an active volcano on Stromboli Island and Mount Etna on Sicily? Helena.
Italy.
That is right. You're in the lead now. What 1947 book by Margaret Wise Brown describes an old lady whispering hush in a great green room and is a classic bedtime story? Hadley.
Goodnight Moon?
That is correct. In 2020, Mark Meadows held what position, later held by Ron Klain, which is often described as a gatekeeper for the president? Raphael.
Secretary of State.
Incorrect. Keith, you could take these points and take the lead. Mark Meadows was Chief of Staff. I believe that's one of the first unanswered questions we've had so far this round. What conspiracy, which is commemorated by Bonfire Night every... Colby.
The gunpowder plot?
Yes, failed plot by Catholics to blow up Parliament. A letter to Lorenzo de' Medici opens what book that compares rulers? Colby.
The Prince?
Yes, rulers to lions and foxes. What organ expresses large amounts of cytochrome P450 enzymes to metabolize drugs, makes fat emulsifying... Ian.
Liver.
Yes, fat emulsifying bile lies beneath the diaphragm. A woman of the far future named Weena belongs to what group of small beings? Ian.
Elohim.
Incorrect. I will finish for Keith. Who are preyed upon by Morlocks in H.G. Wells' novel The Time Machine? Those are the Eloi. And that's how we end the round. What a tight game. Back and forth that whole round. Pretty excited. That's right, Ian. Take a breath. A little sigh of relief. Let it all out. But let's be honest, there's 3 more rounds to play. There's a lot of that tension that could happen. We've got one more round next called volleyball, and it's after this break. We have had a streak recently of very close games. Here's another one. Add this one to the list. It's only 10 points between our teams right now. Keith is on top for now, 80 points to Boylan's 70 before we get to our volleyball round. A very special thank you. We don't have award winners hanging out with us often, but we do today. That's the case with Addie Wilson. She's our judge. She's also a 2nd grade teacher at Rockford's Marshall Elementary, and we are lucky to have you here today, Addie, who also happens to be a Golden Apple winning teacher. Thanks, Addie. All right, our volleyball round contestants, you can work as a team, but remember the answers need to come from captains. That's Luke and Hadley. And because of the coin flip, Hadley, you and the Cougars get our first question. You ready? Here we go. Big Cypress National Preserve is part of what wetlands region extending southward from Lake Okeechobee that names a national park in southern Florida?
Everglades?
Yes, the Everglades National Park. I got the sense you didn't need me to read that full question. You were polite, though, and didn't interrupt me. Boylan, here's your first question. Cassie pretends to be a ghost to escape the plantation of what villainous character who orders Uncle Tom's death in a Harriet Beecher Stowe novel?
Stowe.
The book, of course, Uncle Tom's Cabin. That character was Simon Legree. Back to Keith. What analytical technique typically uses a magnetic field to separate molecules based on their M to Z ratio?
Spectroscopy?
Can you be more specific?
Photoelectron spectroscopy?
Incorrect. We needed mass spectroscopy. We could have also taken mass spectrometry. Close. Spectrometry. Back to Boylan. What empire whose Jaguar and Eagle warriors fought ritual flower wars ruled from Tenochtitlan until it was conquered by Hernan Cortez?
Aztec.
Yes, Tenochtitlan is where Mexico City is today. Keith, what Spanish word names the centuries-long conflict that ended in 1492 when Ferdinand and Isabella captured the Moorish city of Granada?
Reconquista?
That is correct. It's back as far as the early 700s, that conflict. Back to Boylan. What playwright depicted Harry Hope's saloon in The Iceman Cometh and wrote about the fracturing Tyrone family in Long Day's Journey into Night?
Tchaikovsky.
Incorrect. He actually names the theater where the Book of Mormon is running right now on Broadway, Eugene O'Neill. Back to Keith. What author wrote about two deaf-mute friends named Spiros Antonopoulos and John Singer in her novel, The Heart is a Lonely Hunter?
Smith.
McCullers. You're so close. Carson McCullers. Back to Boylan. What word that harms Monty Python's Knights Who Say Ni also names a two-part film set in Maine that features Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise the Clown?
Of.
Oh, you were so close. The wrong two-letter word. It's it. Back over to Keith. Which country that declared independence in the Cry of Ipiranga was ruled by Emperor Pedro I after gaining independence from Portugal?
Brazil.
Yes, in fact, Portuguese is the country's official language. Back to Boylan. In 2023, what country led by Joko Widodo worked with SpaceX on the Satra-1 satellite, which will boost internet access for this country's 280 million residents?
Singapore.
Incorrect. Fourth most populous country in the world, Indonesia. And that is the end of our round. Keith Country Day expanded its lead a little bit. You're in triple digits, up to 110. Boylan has 80, not too far behind. Our lightning round's coming up. At first, you get a chance to play at home with the Bergstrom bonus question, and we'll be right back with the answer.
Directed by Greta Gerwig, what summer blockbuster became the first female-directed movie to surpass $1 billion at the worldwide box office?
Halfway through our game this week, and Keith Country Day has expanded its lead a little bit. It's 40 points now. That's the lead. Keith Country Day has 120. Boylan has 80. Before the scores change, how about some full stomachs with pizza and pasta from Lino's? This seems to be, or tends to be, our most popular question every game. No exception. You already saw it. If you're watching at home, our contestants haven't. So hands on your buzzers, contestants, and let me know if you know the answer to this. Lots on the line. Lino's on the line. Directed by Greta Gerwig, what summer blockbuster Ian?
Barbie.
That is right. That was fast. You didn't even need all the description. First female-directed movie to surpass $1 billion at the worldwide box office. It's also the highest-grossing movie in Warner Brothers history. Take that, Harry Potter franchise. That's also our second Barbie movie reference of the season. We'll be back with our lightning round where a lot can change with these scores. It's up next. Ian was so excited about his victory in the Bergstrom bonus question, he took off already, so he's been replaced. Well, at least for now. Raphael is in. So is Louis. That was the change over there at Boylan. We're about to enter our Nika IBEW lightning round where these scores could change relatively quickly. And speaking of scores changing, you may have noticed that there are 10 more points on Keith Country Day's score. That was because of a question discrepancy where they actually gave a correct answer that I had ruled wrong. Our judge, Addie, of course, overruled me and pointed out my mistake. So we had to credit you those 10 points. Right thing to do. You're up to 120 now, Keith. But Boylan gets first pick in our lightning round this week. So, Luke, your three categories are Pacific Islands, mascots, or ends in U.
No mascots.
Ends in U.
All right. Pretty self-explanatory. Name these words that end with the letter U. 60 seconds to run the category could make a big difference in your score if you run the whole thing, 100 points added. And then Hadley, you and the team will have 30 seconds to clean up what's left. Advice to both teams, don't forget that pass option. That could save you a lot of time.
Yeah.
Are you ready for your first one, Luke?
Yes.
Name these words that end with the letter U. List of dishes available in a restaurant.
Menu.
Menu.
Correct. 5-letter French word for goodbye.
Adieu.
Adieu.
Correct. Large Australian flightless bird.
Emu.
Correct. Flat region with within a mountainous area.
Plateau.
Correct. Greek letter before Z.
Mew. I don't know. Mew.
Pass.
Swampy creek in the southern U.S.
Bayou.
Correct. Coffee-flavored Italian dessert whose name means pick-me-up.
Tiramisu.
Correct. Adjective meaning unplanned.
Impromptu.
Correct. Popular Linux distribution developed by Canonical.
Pass.
Word formed by merging the start and end of two other words.
Portmanteau.
That's correct. Greek letter before Z.
I don't know. Mew is the only one I know.
Mew.
Incorrect. Popular Linux distribution developed by, and that's our time. No time to get back to that. Relatively solid round there, 8 out of 10. That's pretty rare to get that many. 80 points, you're on top now by 40. Keith, you've got 2 left, so that'll close the gap a little bit, and then you, of course, will get the next pick next round. Hadley, are you ready for these 2? You got 30 seconds. You can take all the time if you need it, or you can answer quickly and we'll move on. Here we go. Name these words that end with the letter U. Greek letter before Z.
New.
That's correct. And the popular Linux distribution developed by Canonical.
Ubuntu.
That is correct. And that's all we had left, just those last 2. We cleared that category. Doesn't happen all that often between our 2 teams. That's a sign of how solid you both are up here. And now, Hadley, these are the 2 categories left for you to pick from. Pacific Islands or mascots?
Mascots.
All right. Given a college sports mascot, name the school it represents. Same rules, 60 seconds for you, 30 seconds for Boylan. We'll see what happens with these scores after this. Could be some dramatic changes. So you ready, Hadley? Here we go. Given a college sports mascot, name the school it represents. An Irish leprechaun.
Notre Dame.
Correct. Albert and Alberta, who are alligators.
Pass.
Bevo, who is a longhorn.
Texas.
Correct. Brutus Buckeye.
Ohio.
Can you be more specific?
Ohio State.
That's correct. Big Al, who is an elephant.
Alabama.
Correct. A dancing tree.
Syracuse.
Incorrect. Ralphie, who's a bison.
Pass.
Ramblin' Wreck, which is a 1930 car.
Pass.
Sparky, which is a maroon and gold devil.
Pass.
Handsome Dan, who's a bulldog.
Georgia.
Incorrect. Albert and Alberta, who are alligators.
Florida.
Correct. Ralphie, who is a bison, and that's our time. Can't get back to any of those. 5 of them right, so now you're back on top. But there's still 5 left on the board. Potentially, Boylan, you get all of these, and that will put you back in the lead. Are you ready for these, Luke? You've got 30 seconds. Titans ready? Okay, here we go. Here's your first one. Given a college sports mascot, name the school it represents. A dancing tree.
Georgia.
Incorrect. Ralphie, who's a bison.
Colorado State.
Incorrect. Ramblin' Wreck, which is a 1930 car.
Michigan State.
Incorrect. Sparky, which is a maroon and gold devil.
Arizona State.
That's correct. Handsome Dan, who's a bulldog.
Gonzaga.
Incorrect. There's nothing left to go back to, so you got one of them right. You're within 20 points. Let's run down the 4 no one got. The dancing tree is Stanford. The tree is actually the band's mascot, but that is the school's mascot. Ralphie the bison is with the University of Colorado. So you said Colorado State. You added too much to the answer there. University of Colorado. Ramblin' Wreck. Now the team is actually the Yellow Jackets, but they also have a 1930 car named Ramblin' Wreck at Georgia Tech. And Handsome Dan, who's a bulldog, somebody said did you say Georgia? Solid guess, but Handsome Dan is actually Yale's mascot. They're on Handsome Dan, number 19. All right, we've got 20 points between our teams, 190 to 170, and one more round to play. It's our final challenge, and it's next. Wow, this is going to be another close final challenge. There's only a question between our teams right now. 20 points worth. Keith Country Day has 190. Boylan has 170. A seat in the second round is on the line. Hands on your buzzers, contestants. Same rules as round 1, other than each of these questions now is worth 20 points instead of 10. Remember to wait for me to call your name before you answer and say that answer loudly and clearly. Good luck. Deep breath. Here we go. What African country where the 7-million-year-old Sahelanthropus fossil was found lies south of Libya and is governed from N'Djamena? Colby.
Chad.
That's right before the buzzer. First points of the round. What war in which a UN landing at Incheon was Colby?
The Korean War.
That's right, led by Douglas MacArthur, ended in 1953. 2 in a row. What Castilian saint established the order of preachers, also known as the Black Friars, in 12 Louis?
St. Ignatius of Loyola.
Incorrect. I'll finish for Keith. The Black Friars in 1216. It's where we get the Dominicans from. That was St. Dominic. What term, which is translated as bruca in German and pain in French, denotes Colby?
Bread.
Incorrect. I'll finish for Boylan. Denotes a structure, such as the Sydney Harbor and Golden Gate ones. Louis.
Bridge.
Yes, those are bridges. At the 2021 U.S. Open, Russian Daniil Medvedev was booed during his championship point, which denied what other tennis player a calendar Grand Slam? Rafael.
Djokovic.
That is correct. Novak Djokovic, #1 ranked player in the world. What author who wrote about a man who dies of hypothermia in his story To Build a Fire depicted Hadley?
London.
That's right, a canine protagonist in the Yukon in White Fang. What Greek hero used the help of Medea to retrieve the Golden Fleece? Ian.
Jason.
That is right. Traveled with the Argonauts. What SI-derived unit is equal to 1 volt ampere or 1 joule per second, measures power, and is named for an... Raphael.
Watt.
That's right. Inventor who improved the steam engine. We are tied. Hittite king Muwatalli II and Ramses the Great signed the Eternal Treaty after what 1274 BC battle fought near the Orontes River? Mitch.
Battle of the Nile.
Incorrect. Boylan, you could take these points and take the lead. Ian.
Memphis.
Incorrect. The Battle of Kadesh. What rapper says he knows his whole backs to these ropes and describes vomit on his sweater already? And it's Ian.
Eminem.
That's right. A song from 8 Mile titled Lose Yourself. What 7-letter term can refer to the total weight or total dry weight of all living matter in a given area? Hadley.
Biomass.
Biomass is correct. We're back to a tied game. What president who was accused of cruelty in the coffin handbills unseated John Quincy Adams in 1828 and was a former general? Raphael.
Andrew Jackson.
That is correct, nicknamed Old Hickory, and that is how we end the game. 290 points. Boylan, you are moving on, almost 300. It's kind of rare to get that high. Congratulations. You'd be very happy for yourselves. You move on to the second round to take on Galena. Keith, sorry to see you go, but you played a fantastic game. You should not, I know there are not too many smiles going around now, but you should be very happy with the way you played. How many of you are seniors? So that means, Mitch, you're coming back and you're the core of next year's team. Is that a deal? Non-committal, but that's kind of the reaction I get when I ask that question, but that's okay. We're glad you were here. We hope you had some fun. Next week, we hope you join us when North Boone faces Morrison.